Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off. Let's meet this week's fantastic panel. We have former TV and TV talk show host, the amazing Frank Luber. We have outstanding Baltimore radio talker and podcaster, Dan Joseph, whose podcast, Dan Joseph's America, is on Apple and Spotify. Then we have former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon and America's great attorney, original Square Off panelist, been with us 40 years. Please welcome Billy Murphy. All right. Well, the Democratic National Convention is now in the history books, ending late Friday night with Kamala Harris's acceptance speech, as she becomes the first woman of Black and South Asian heritage to be a major party presidential nominee. So all of you watching, all the American voters, you now have your choices. Democrats Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz versus Republicans Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. So as you think about the four of them, how do you suggest the election will be resulting in who? Dan Joseph.
Yeah, I watched almost all of the convention the last 4 days. It was very good. It was very well put together. I thought Mrs. Harris's speech was very, very good last night. That being said, the Democrats should be wary of becoming too overconfident. Donald Trump still has a big advantage when it comes to the economy, and that could play a big factor in some of those swing states, which the Democratic convention was very, very pointedly generated towards those middle America states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Harris is going to have to do more, though. She gave a great speech. The vice president is going to have to go out there, and she's going to have to answer some questions, Richard. She's going to have to answer some not necessarily friendly press inquiries. She's going to have to explain why she had all of these far left policies in 2019 and 2020 when she's running for president that she doesn't want to talk about anymore. If she can effectively do that, she has a chance in this race.
Sheila Dixon, step in.
I watched every day of the convention. It was an extraordinary convention. I've gone through many conventions, historic convention, Jesse Jackson, Obama. This was phenomenal. The energy that is there. I think Vice President Harris, and you're right, no one should be overconfident, but I believe truly that this is going to be the election for the first woman president. And not just the fact that she's a woman, the fact that her experience, her expertise, she did a phenomenal job last night. She, yes, has to explain about the economy, but Vance and Trump, no offense, I think that they are probably crying deeply right now, totally afraid. I believe that Trump is going to cancel the debate against her because she's going to take him on and deal with all of those issues that are impacting Americans. The diversity of this country was reflected this week, and I just feel energized. I'm motivated. I'm going to do anything in my power to help make sure that this victory happens.
All right, thank you, Sheila. Dr. Frank Luber.
Well, I just have this to say, and that is, it reminds me of bread and circuses. P.T. Barnum would have been proud looking on at the Democrat National Convention. It was a big show, basically to gin up the base. It won't thread the needle one way or another. No mystery whatsoever. Last night when Kamala Harris got up to speak, I believe that it was completely underwhelming. No substance, no policy statements whatsoever. And like Dan said, sooner or later, she's going to have to come clean on her record.
Billy Murphy.
I disagree with what Frank said and agree with both of the other panelists that this was a spectacular convention. It touched all the right notes. It showed the diversity of America. It dealt with working people. I think her selection of Tim Walz for vice president is superb. I listened to as much of it as I could, and I was thrilled by the Obamas. I think they knocked it out of the park. I think they designed their speeches to hit Trump at his weakest, and you're going to see Trump fall apart, just like he did after the National Press Club debacle, when Obama unfortunately motivated him to become president of the United States by being such an excellent needler and so to the point about everything that's wrong with this man. To this day, I can't understand why rational people want a serial liar for president. I can't understand why they want somebody who has promised to be a dictator from day one. I can't understand why somebody would want a person who repeatedly lies about big stuff like what happened on September the 6th at the Capitol. And I can't understand how anyone would support someone who has sold the big lie to America that this election was stolen. He's coming right out of a dictator's playbook. He's coming right out of someone who wants to be an authoritarian. And the 2025 program that he has is just nuts. That is so extreme. And so if we elect this man, one last sentence, if we elect this man, America will fundamentally change for the worse.
In a just released poll conducted by Bullfinch between August 19th and the 21st, 1,000 registered voters, Harris with 47% of the vote, Trump with 39%. This is an 8-point difference with a 3.1% margin of error. Dan, you look like you want to say something.
No, I mean, I think those are really good numbers for Kamala Harris. I do think that that's probably wishful thinking that she'd win the election by 8 points. That's a big Obama-style victory, and I don't think we're in that place right now politically as a country. At the same time, though, RFK Jr., it's expected he's going to drop out of the race today. I think most of his voters that are still with him go to Trump, or maybe just stay home and not vote. But I think that, again, Donald Trump is one of the most undisciplined candidates, certainly that I've ever seen in history. And I agree with a lot of what Billy's saying. It's seriously problematic that the United States has elected this guy in the first place, but they did. And if the Democrats decide that they're going to dwell on, Donald Trump is a terrible person, Donald Trump is crazy, Donald Trump is an existential threat to the country, the people don't really have a history of listening to that, even after 4 years of Donald Trump in office. So what I think they have to do, the Democrats, yes, they have to stay on message, but they can't focus on Donald Trump being a bad guy. They have to focus on what the American people are thinking about.
Sheila,
I believe that they have to do a balance. I think we have to stick to the issues. We have to look at the economy. We have to look at what's going on around the world. We have to deal with a whole host of issues that impact Americans, everyday people, and they reflected that. I think you can't get away from who Donald Trump is, what he stands for, and the destruction that this country will face with Trump in advance. You can't avoid that, and you can't ignore it. And most of what they're saying is truthful. It's not like him getting up and giving blatant lies and misinformation. And so you have to do both. I always believe as a elected official, you stick to the issues, because to me, yes, it can be destructive if you just go totally negative on an individual. But we are at stake in this country, and this is going to change what happens in the next generation and our children and our grandchildren. And enough is enough. Even in the Congress and in the Senate, we've got to be able to work across the lines and move the city forward and deal with the day-to-day issue, immigration, economy, schools, interest rates.
All right.
Right.
Middle class.
Frank Luber, let me just get this in and then.
Well,
wait for
I'm glad that Sheila mentioned about the issues, because basically in the Democrat National Convention this past week, they really didn't hit on any of the issues whatsoever. The biggest issues out there today is the economy, inflation, and of course the border. And right after that, crime in the streets of major cities across the country. but there was nothing said about that, virtually nothing at all on all those major issues. Nothing on the economy, nothing on inflation, nothing on cost of living, nothing on the border, nothing on crime. These are the issues that people are caring about.
Yeah, but the
Not
Democrats
all
can't
platitudes
embrace,
that
the
went on for the
Democrats can't
past
embrace
week or
issues
so.
that people are blaming them for.
They're
People are
not-
blaming the Democrats for all those things you're talking about, so they can't talk about that at their convention.
All right.
No, of course not.
But in the
Because
next 70 some days left, we have to. And I believe that this election has motivated individuals who originally, and despite the fact that I was going to vote for Biden, but there are a lot of young people that weren't even going to be a part of this election. And so they're motivated. And so now it's time to get out to the various states and get those messages out.
We'll get back to Billy, who's waiting to talk. But first, ladies and gentlemen, please support our 4 wonderful sponsors. They're helping to carry the show, and you all have increased our ratings significantly. Great viewership. Here's the voice. Here's the reason. None of you. The real reason is the voice of Square Off, Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, the voice. Richard and I are proud to represent. Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes that extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. So next time you need a lawyer, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. He gets results. Tell him Richard Sher sent you.
Yes,
And for
sir.
special occasions, group get-togethers, or just date night, Pappas restaurants and sports bars belong at the top of your list. Enjoy their award-winning crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the Fab Cake, and a great selection of steaks, seafood, and other mouth-watering treats. Pappas is Oprah's favorite, and they ship their crab cakes all over the country. 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. Pappas food, service, and atmosphere, second to none. Back to you, Richard.
All right, Howard, well done. Former President Trump, during the week, attacked Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's convention appearance on Truth Social site. Trump writing, the highly overrated Jewish governor of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, made a really bad and poorly delivered speech during which Trump claimed that Kamala Harris hates Israel and hopes it will fail. Trump added, Shapiro refused to acknowledge that I, Trump, am the best friend that Israel and the Jewish people ever had. Frankly, I've done more for Israel than any person, and it's not even close. End of Trump quote. Billy, come in.
That's typical Trump BS. And he is misjudging the environment for talking about that, as well as how he approached dealing with a Black woman in front of a bunch of Black press people. He is losing his mind. And I mean that literally. I see Trump decomposing before our very eyes. The notion that he predicted that Joe Biden was going to show up at the convention at the last minute and reclaim his right to be president of the United States, and he was serious about it. The man is losing his mind. The whole notion that he was in the helicopter with Willie Brown, and as it was going down, they talked about Kamala Harris. The man is losing his mind. There are so many indicators that Trump is losing it, and not necessarily because of his age, but that is a contributing factor. And now that Joe Biden is not there to overshadow that, everyone is looking at Trump with a different point of view, and they're seeing this decomposition of him before their very eyes. Last but not least, this convention was joyous. It was positive. It was hope-bringing. And that's the attitude America needs to regain. And one of the things that the Obamas knew that would work on Trump's brain for the rest of this campaign is sticking that needle in him as far as they could in every way, subtle or otherwise, that they could. And he's going to decompose because of that, because the nerve of Black people to be able to talk to him like that. He does not know how to deal with a Black woman. That's obvious. And so these things are going to cause him heartburn galore. He's already, according to his insiders, despondent because he thinks it's totally unfair that Joe Biden is not his opponent. Give me a break. That's the ravings of a man who's losing it.
Billy, wait. That's a great analysis. And I want to say this about you, Billy. You no longer look like an attorney now that you've evaluated what Trump said and put on a bow tie. You are now a therapist. Billy Murphy.
You don't have to be a psychiatrist to understand that Trump is crazy. You don't have to be a psychologist either. It's there for you. I mean, he's a malignant narcissist. That's the diagnosis.
Frank and then Dan.
Well, I would agree with Billy to a certain extent. I mean, the problem with Trump's biggest problem is his mouth. And I think a lot of people who even support him, including myself, would agree that it's his mouth and some of the things that he says. I know a lot of things that he says are supposed to be a joke or supposed to be in jest or what have you, but it comes off, alienating a lot of people, even some of his own supporters. But I would also say that actions speak louder than words. Trump is a typical New Yorker, braggadocious and what have you, and kind of a big mouth when you come down to it. But in the end, it's his actions that are going to, I think, trump, pardon the pun, trump over what he actually says.
Thank you, Doctor. Dan Joseph.
On the issue of Israel, I think that Trump is not very good of a political tactician. He really doesn't know what he's doing. He just has these little sound bites in his mind that he thinks he can repeat over and over again, and eventually people will come around to his way of thinking. I thought the Shapiro speech at the convention was quite good, but there's no doubt that the left and the Democratic Party have a very dangerous split. I don't know if it's a split. It's more like 33-66, but the 33% is very loud, of people who are angry that the Democratic Party has been so supportive of Israel in their war on Gaza. And Donald Trump automatically thinks, oh, well, Jewish people will vote for me because they're supporting of Israel too. He makes the mistake of not understanding that Jewish people do not vote in the United States based on Israel traditionally. They vote based on government programs and other things like that. So it's a bad look for Donald Trump. Above all.
I'm just thinking, I listened to a speech the other day, and what president was not in support of Israel? You can't probably name one that
wasn't. The presidents all were, but you do have that Palestinian
but you also have to look at last night.
Loud.
Right, there are some on the left, and you're right about that. And there also has to be a balance, because there are also Palestinians that should not be treated that way. And so we need to end this. We need to allow the hostages to be released, and we need to come up with some agreement, because the lives of people on both sides should not happen. And it's very destructive. And so last night, I believe that Vice President Harris you try to provide that balance, because that's what it takes. And in order to get those people on the left to understand, as well as those on the right, and be able to move forward, we will never get to that point if we don't look at both sides. But every president has supported Israel.
So let me say this. A friend of mine, Oprah Winfrey, she gave quite a speech too a couple of nights ago. What did you think of that speech, Billy?
I thought her uniqueness is her ability to communicate and to empathize and to understand what is important for human beings anywhere, anytime. She has that gift, and she has polished it to brilliance. And I thought what she said at the convention was extraordinarily effective. And I think it moved people because it was simple and it was true. As long as you keep things simple and true, you're going to win. As long as you are honest with the American people about what our faults are, not just our strengths. And you show your patriotism by trying to correct everything and anything that we haven't corrected so far about our country, you're going to win. As long as you are positive, and you speak to everybody, not just your base, and you use language that gets you there with their understanding and support, you can't lose. And so the key to her winning is that she gives as few press conferences as possible. She kicks Trump's butt, and we keep on message. Trump's incapable of doing that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Square Off at squareoff.net. Here is our voice, the one and only Howard Mellison. How?
Thank you, Richard. You know, the way some people drive these days, and they really drive crazy, auto accidents are definitely on the rise. If your car's been in an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more people are trusting their auto repairs and auto maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. Just drive by, you'll see so many cars in their lot. They work on all makes and models. They offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. Give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. And Baltimore is one of the best diner towns in the country. And the most popular of all of them are the Double T diners. TT, totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, dinner, the Double T menu offers you so many choices. You're going to want to order everything on the menu. With locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus Monday nights are lobster nights at By the Docks in Middle River, all part of the Double T family. And back to you, Richard.
Jeff Siegel and his guys and the ladies over at his place there, that leading edge, your car will look like brand new. I guarantee it. I wish I could say, or you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. But my former partner is the only one I know who can afford to do that. Well, President Trump continues to reject advisors' advice to stop his constant attacks, his insults, his name calling. He goes off the teleprompter to slam his opponents. Fox's Howard Kurtz writing, "There's really no choice but to let Trump be Trump." But Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, Frank, says, if you have a policy debate, Trump wins. He's the showman, but he may not win this election. And former candidate Nikki Haley says the campaign is not going to win, talking about crowd sizes, Kamala Harris's race, and calling her dumb. You agree with that, Frank?
No, I don't. I go back to what I said before. This is the typical New Yorker. They speak, loudly and in many cases, most of us would look at some of the things that they say and just shake our heads, in disbelief. But that's Trump. You're not going to change Trump. Trump was successful in 2016. He came very close in 2020. There's no reason why we can't expect him to come at least as close as he did in 2020, if not actually beat Kamala Harris. I really believe that, most of our panelists here, in fact, I think all of the panelists here are pretty much political junkies and news junkies. But the majority of this country are not really tuning in to what we're talking about. In fact, I would almost dare say that the vast, vast majority of the people in this country weren't even tuned into either the Republican or the Democrat National Convention. So really nothing that has transpired so far is going to mean anything whatsoever at all. I think what we're going to see is you're going to see basically a real horse race beginning right after Labor Day, as is usually the case in any presidential election.
All right.
I believe that Trump needs to tone down. I believe that, and I'm going to do a survey this weekend as I move around, but I feel strongly that probably more people than usual did watch this convention. And they watched it because they wanted to learn about Kamala Harris and find out who she is, as well as her vice president. So I think more people did than normal that would have not have watched it. But I also think that he needs to tone down, because people on social media, people are looking at other avenues in order to get information. People watch the news, they hear the sound bites. He's digging a hole for himself. And unfortunately, too bad we can't change candidates for the Republican Party because he's lost this. And right, he's going to definitely, because of that, knowing that, he's going to probably even be worse. It would behoove him to listen to his consultants, and he changed his tone, particularly
Well,
after
listen,
the fact
Sheila,
that he
let me ask
almost.
you this. Were we better off 4 years ago than we are today?
Frank, you asked that 2 weeks ago. Hold on.
So you have to ask the question about what happened over the last 4 years, where the country shut down during COVID and so many issues. You know, were we better off? I mean, things go up and down. I mean, gas prices, are that what you're talking about? Food prices, there are a whole host of issues that happened that impacted all of us.
And all these things have occurred on the
Well,
Biden
but wait a minute, we
watch.
started, COVID was
Every-
originally under when things shut down, it was Trump who was the president.
Billy,
I mean,
yeah, Frank, believe it or not, we're not on WCAO, and this is not all of your show. This is 1/4 of your show. All
I
right.
didn't think he talked too much.
What?
I didn't think Frank talked too much.
Well, he's making good TV. Leave me alone, would you, Billy?
I think Frank makes a good point, though. I think Sheila makes a good point too. People don't really Trump's disgustingness, Trump's problems personally, what I think is probably mental illness, they're built in. They're built in. People have been seeing them for 8 years. They've been completely normalized. And right now, like Frank and Sheila both said, the average voter does not really care anymore. They're looking at their pocketbook. They're looking at inflation, looking at grocery prices, and they're saying, "What the hell is going on here?" Then they'll say, "This started under Biden, and my life, for the first 2 years of the Trump administration was much better." And that's very likely how they're going to vote. It may not be necessary. It may be way more complicated than that, and I would argue it is. But at the same time, that's the way the average voter views things.
Billy Murphy, jump in.
Well, I think this team has the ability to simplify all of this complexity. That's why I love the vice presidential nominee. He simplifies in everyday language and empathizes in everyday language. He is a person who has done that all his life. He has been a tremendous success in dealing with blue-collar America, middle-class America, and motivating them. He's the perfect foil. On the other hand, Trump has picked a crazy person for vice president, and he's going to be a target the entire campaign. And what terrible judgment it is for him to pick somebody like that. He was hardly vetted. Last but not least,
Please.
if you look at the comics and what they say, particularly Jon Stewart and Comedy Central, their analysis of this campaign and of Trump is beyond excellent. And everybody ought to look at Jon Stewart's show last night because you can't walk away from his analysis. And I know he's a comedian, but he's deadly serious and he researches everything. And he will show you stuff that will make you say, there's no question that Trump is crazy. And so I urge people to do that. And
boy, you put a lot of faith.
And last night, what he did was he did a side by side. He said, this is what Trump said in his last campaign about his opponent. This is what he's saying now. Identical. He calls everybody dumb. He insults everybody in the same way. And his playbook is so narrow and so unimaginative. It's not going to work this time. We're tired of the man. He's got to go. And I'm an anybody but Trumper. I'd vote for Mickey Mouse in this campaign.
I agree. And let me just say at this point, because Frank said this is how New Yorkers are. I disagree because my son-in-law is a New Yorker, and I know other New Yorkers, and this is not how they are.
All right. So,
You know what's amazing here?
what?
Sheila, and Billy, you're not going to change my mind. You're not going to change Dan's mind, and we're not going to change yours. So that's basically where we are here in this country. The same thing.
I don't think that's where we
This
are.
election's going to be won by turnout and people who are undecided.
Correct.
There
And
are
I don't
those
think-
undecided
and-
voters.
and
I don't
there
know
are
how
people-
anybody can be undecided at this point, but they are out there. They are having trouble deciding who they're going to vote for this election, and both sides,
Yeah.
you know, that even if it's just 4%, that can make a big difference.
No,
Sure.
oh, it could. I've been there. I know it can. And so I know that there are people who are independent. There are people who are Republicans who are going to have to make some decisions. And you're right. And this election in the next 70 some days is going to determine that.
All right,
We have
listen
two
up,
choices.
Frank.
Two choices.
One choice is that we're out of time. And what is your Frank? What is your second?
No, I was going to say we only have two choices. So,
Oh.
you know, that's what we're left with.
One of them will be president in 2025.
Those two guys
No
have no
question about that.
presidential debate scheduled for Tuesday, September 10th on ABC. And the vice presidential debate is set for Tuesday, October 1st on Maryland Public TV and any other local station that wants to carry it. If you have any comments about our panelists or the topics, go to squareoff.net. And what do you click on, Howard, to get to the mail?
Click right on it and it'll take you right to it.
Was
When
that
you go to
wasn't
the website,
There you
it'll
go.
show you right there. It'll allow you to comment. Go right to Square Off. Watch Square Off at hotmail.com.
Howard?
It's
It's
right there.
amazing.
Yes.
You got an extra appearance today. I'll be talking to Mike Murphy about this. Billy, good night.
Well, he's my
Thank-
agent. Billy's my agent. Right, Bill?
That's correct.
Hey, so it was exciting. Both conventions were exciting. We'll see what happens on November 5th. And we will see you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Sheila. And Billy, thank you for dressing up. Fabulous tie.
And thank you, Richard, for doing this for as long as you have done it. It's a valuable service to this state and to this country.
Yes, agree.
Billy will give you an extra 10 minutes. Go on. Once again, we square off. Wave goodbye, everybody. Come on. Wave bye-bye, bye-bye, bye.